Hello and welcome to Women AF Podcast, a podcast hosted by three friends who are trying to get through this bizarro world / pandemic / living life remotely. We just finished our Fuck That series last week, and this week we are so excited to introduce a new guest. Her name is Cassandra. Cassandra has always been good at the hustle. From a young age, Cassandra cultivated the belief that she had to be self-sufficient to succeed. This helped her escape from a turbulent upbringing in a household stricken with abuse. Cassandra's entrepreneurial endeavors taught her firsthand how trauma can manifest in different ways: self-sabotaging, doubting your intuition, white-knuckle control, and even perfectionism. Despite these challenges, she was able to create and grow multiple successful businesses, including Tola Marketing and Creative and Milk and Cookie, from the ground up. She's discovered what it truly takes to leverage trauma and to find a new level of income, impact, and fulfillment. Through her experience helping women in some of the most meaningful times of their lives as a birth doula, she's realized the power of women working together. In her current role as an entrepreneurial guide and trauma-informed business coach, Cassandra helps female entrepreneurs unlock their highest potential. She approaches each client and project with a fresh perspective, innovation, and curiosity. For more information about Cassandra's story or to connect with her, visit cassandrashuck.com. And we'll include her link in the show notes. Welcome, Cassandra.
Welcome. I didn't realize how long my bio was until someone is reading it. And it reads my bio, and all of a sudden I hear like the Charlie Brown voice. Wah, 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 wah.
Oh, it's so funny because I always get so nervous. I don't know if you're watching on video, I'm like 5 shades of red, which is usually good why it's audio, because like I always get nervous when I have to read something.
I totally get it.
I'm going to say it wrong.
I was a kid in class who they'd like call you to read and you're like, I'll pass. I'll skip.
Yeah.
I don't want to read aloud. And I laughed and I'm like, oh, those seeds were planted and now I'm a public speaker.
Full circle.
Full circle. 100%. So how is your week? Welcome to our show.
I'm super, super excited to be here. It's been, let's just say it as it is, a shit show. I'm in the midst of moving in the midst of a pandemic.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, nothing says more fun than trying to sell your house in the midst of a pandemic.
Wow. Yeah, you can imagine. And like social distance showings, can they come for a showing, or is it like a tour?
Yeah,
visual tour.
We've done it all. We've done distance showings. We've had to be out. We've had to like spray down at everything and clean everything in between people. Like, luckily it's under contract, but of course there's still 99 other things to do in order to sell a house. Which inspectors have to come in, and HVAC people, and this person, and that person's grandma, and literally everyone.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like a crazy time.
Yeah, it does.
Do you have a house that you have all set to move into?
No, so we actually are really smart. I can teach you how to do a business really well, but when it comes to I wouldn't recommend it. We're actually downsizing and moving up to Bar Harbor, Maine, and deciding if we want to build or buy. We're renting.
Whoa,
and
that's
we're moving
exciting.
from 3,600 square feet down to 900.
Oh,
it'll be intimate. It's
wow.
It's basically a 2-bedroom tiny home.
Oh my gosh. That's cool.
I love the tiny home shows.
Me too.
But like practically,
yeah,
it's gonna work.
True. Yeah, it's a big adjustment. Are you like keeping your things in storage in the meantime, or doing one of those like box shipping things?
No, so we actually decided to sell a lot of our stuff. We're just a lifestyle change, a location change, kind of an overhaul of a lot of stuff that wasn't necessarily working or serving us anymore. When we bought this house, we thought tons of people were going to come visit, and that's why we bought the big fancy house. And like crickets, like no family wants to come down to North Carolina. We're just going to do our own thing now and do what makes us happy.
Yeah. Well, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Big changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, totally.
All right, ladies, what's up? Nicole, you mentioned running.
So my face is equally as red right now. But that's just because I ran like an hour ago and I'm still red because I'm one of those people that look like I'm probably dying when I'm running because I'm so red. And then it just stays red forever. So
glow. It's not it's a glow. You look glowy.
Sure. It's also been an hour, so I'm hoping the glow goes away.
I ran at 9 a.m. and look at how red my face is.
Just never ending.
And I got several pity waves today. They were like, "Oh, are you dying? Are you naked?" And I'm like waving at them like, "No, don't worry about me. I got this." And one was like a very old guy. Like he had to be at least 80 and he had like, awesome. And then he's just like, you good? I'm good.
Is someone
yeah. What I really want to happen is somebody driving next to me, or maybe I want to do it to somebody. One of the two needs to happen where someone needs to be driving next to me, blaring the Eye of the Tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, and just like go right next to me while I'm just running along. I'm waiting for that day. Yeah? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Carrie. Take one for the team.
My math teacher used to play that song before every algebra test that we had in high school. I know. So now, now every time I hear Eye of the Tiger, I think of algebra. So it's good. It's good.
Is there some like residual trauma there where you hear dun dun dun? dun,
I was gonna make a math joke, but I legitimately could not think of anything.
I got your
no formulas.
Really? There's a reason my profile picture has a calculator.
Nice. There you go. Carrie, what about you?
There's been an interesting turn of events in my house that I want to throw out there because I think I need a little help with it. Suddenly, 2 days ago, my 9-year-old decided she wants to be a vegetarian.
Ooh, that phase.
Oh no.
Right? And I'm like, okay, but this is going to be very difficult because she's kind of picky eater, right? She's a 9-year-old, so she likes what she likes, but a lot of what she likes is meat. And she's been pretty passionate about things like bacon and hamburgers. And now she's like, done. So I don't know where to go with this. How am I supposed to do meals for her? What am I supposed to give her? What the heck? So I'm going to throw it out there because none of you are vegetarians, are you?
I've been through that phase myself.
Yeah. What ages was it?
So I started when I was about 9, honestly. And then about 13. And then I have a soy allergy, so being vegetarian is particularly hard for me because of all of the processed, like,
oh my gosh,
products and tofurkey, bacon, whatever the heck it's called, like all of those things.
Yeah, that's all soy.
But I don't know. I think I feel like a lot of little girls go through that phase where they're like, oh, but my bacon comes from this really cute pig.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think reading Charlotte's Web together helped this. And so
I'm like, how do you navigate that? Because mine will be 9 in 5 years. I'm gonna borrow some ideas from you.
There you go.
Well, if you can remember any things that you particularly like to eat, send them my way because I don't know. It's going to be weird. It's going to be hard. And I hope she doesn't
like salads and stuff, or does she not like veggies?
She likes a very limited amount of veggies. Mm-hmm. And a very limited amount of non-meat proteins.
Yeah.
Have you told her if she's going to be vegetarian, she's going to have to open up her palate a little more?
We talked a little bit about it. This is a pretty new thing. And I think what we need to do is sit down together and do some research.
Mm-hmm. Is she doing this Sorry, is she doing this with other friends? Like, is that what's driving it? Is like a group of girls
That's a good question.
Doing it?
She did not say that, but I'll ask her that
because something's stirring it. So I'd be curious as to.
She's always like really loved animals so much, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I hope she doesn't do this till she's 13. I hope this is like a week-long thing.
There you go.
My sister's a vegetarian.
Okay, well, maybe she'll have some tips.
But she doesn't live with me, so I don't have to make her meals all the time.
Right, but I don't even know where to start. It's hard to even just think of ideas. So
yeah,
maybe she should comment on our socials and throw out some ideas.
Yeah, or listeners, if you have delicious vegetarian ideas, please send them to us on our social media account.
Whoa!
Where can they do that?
Well, they could do that on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram at Women AF Podcast, or you could even email us at womenafpodcast@gmail.com.
So many options.
So many options.
All of them. Send them to all of them.
So today I'm going to have an awkward segue just now, which is fine because we usually do. To follow up our Fuck That series, we are going to talk to an expert on leveraging trauma into something positive. But before we do that, before we hear from Cassandra Shuck, we are going to hear from Nicole about one of her favorite stores.
Guys, guys.
You got this.
Okay. All right. We got this. Guys, we have a new sponsor. It's Michael's.
Oh,
I know most of us are still bunkered down in our homes, and what better time to pick up a fun hobby than right now? Fun fact, did you guys know that I still am a huge crafter and actually used to sell at local craft fairs? Because I did. It's fine. No big deal.
Wow.
It's fine. Nerd. It's fine. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I lived at Michael's during that time. Like, they have everything. They have frames, yarns, watercolor paper, plastic protectors for your artwork, everything that you can think of. I personally, as you can tell, am a huge fan of all of their craftiness. And now you can get exclusive coupons. Visit our page at womenafpodcast.com and click sponsors for that exclusive coupon. That's womenafpodcast.com and click sponsors. Now we can all be crafters.
Okay, that was the most entertaining ad read we've ever done, I'm pretty sure.
It's like I'm drinking, but I'm not drinking. This is nuts.
That was adorable.
Are you sure you're not stoned, Nicole?
I might be. Who knows? Oh, dear. Yes.
All right. Well, leveraging trauma.
Good segue.
Thanks. Smooth. Very smooth.
Yes.
Smooth. All right. But for reals, let's get into it. Let's crack into it for any other. And that's why we drink fans out there. No? Okay. All right, Cassandra. So we read your bio, and one of the things that I thought was really awesome about your bio is when you talk about yourself as a trauma-informed business coach. And when we spoke briefly before this interview, you talked about how you have overcome pretty significant trauma in your own life and had started like 3 businesses, maybe more, 3 that were listed on your bio. Can you?
Were listed on bio. If I had to leave them in the bio, it would have been even longer.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about what a trauma-informed business coach is and how you decided, instead of hiding under a rock with my trauma, I'm going to do something pretty awesome?
100%. So this name was actually given to me by a client of mine. I had never even identified that A, there was something called trauma-informed in the psychology space, but B, it was like the work that I was doing in the business space. So a couple of years ago, I had a psychologist that I was coaching and helping her grow her business. And she goes, what you're doing is technically trauma-informed work because we're going back to the root cause of the issues and the limiting beliefs that the woman that you're working with has. And we're rewriting that story and actually capitalizing and leveraging it. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool title. I think I'm going to borrow that from like the modern psychology world and actually apply it to business. So most of what I do in the business coaching space is unearthing the limiting beliefs, the doubting, the fears, the anxiety, wherever it's coming up for them and whatever it looks like for them, and actually teaching them how to leverage and how to flip that story.
That has to be hard to dig down that many layers, especially I imagine there's a lot of people who don't even realize they have limiting beliefs.
100%. Yeah. So people tend to be attracted to me just based on my story. And considering I've had many different degrees of trauma, be it, childhood, physical, mental, and sexual abuse, be it losing a child at a fairly young age, be it being in an abusive marriage with a husband who was cheating on me and got someone else pregnant. Like I've done my fair share of stuff.
Yeah.
More than, in my opinion. So I think coming in with that lens and people seeing that, they start looking at their own stuff.
How do you think you found the strength to kind of go through that trauma and overcome it?
Yeah, so I don't think technically you overcome trauma. I think you learn how to leverage, which is kind of the word that I typically use. I don't think it will ever truly leave the body. There'll always be imprints, but if we can change the story around from, oh, I was a victim to, oh, I survived, and oh, I can do anything that's put in front of me, and oh, any fear that I have is just noise from someone else that was given to me, we can kind of put down the victimhood perspective and actually stand up in that survivor power.
Can you give an example or tell a story of what it looks like to leverage trauma? Because I think a lot of people have a hard time imagining what that would look like in real life.
100%. Yeah. So I'll give you an example from my client, and then I'll give you an example from me. So for my client, one in particular, she didn't know that she had trauma. She's like, I know I have some doubts there. I don't know really where they came from, which is typical. People will not know kind of the origins. But she's like, but my business will not get past this certain dollar amount. She's like, I've tried all the things. I've done all the things that everyone says I should do. I've downloaded the freebies. I've done the courses. I've done the email templates. Like, just please, like, for the love of God, help me get over this hump. So we realized for her imprints were based around identity, that her dad had a really successful business and it got taken away from him. And she watched and witnessed this, and she was about 9 years old. So she watched him lose his boat, lose his business, lose a house, lose money, lose. And she watched going from successful to really get a completely different story. So she was worried from a trauma perspective that if her business got to have that amount of visibility, got to have that amount of success, got to have that amount of notoriety, someone was going to come take it from her. It wasn't hers, but it was something that that was her experience. So we had to rewrite that and actually say, no, you learned a lot of things from him. It was actually really positive for you. You got to see and witness success. And then we apply that back to her business.
And then she was able to overcome that at that point?
She threefolded her income within 2 months.
Nice. That's definitely overcoming it.
Out and kind of dived into that. She was like, oh, I just upped my prices and sold 8 this week. And I'm like, pardon? She's like, yeah, they're just booking naturally. And I'm like, okay, it's because we had to get rid of your junk that you were holding on to.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All of my businesses have stemmed from some sort of past trauma or past issue, or someone somewhere told me that I couldn't do something. So be it the marketing agency actually was birthed out of a corporate career that was not very healthy by any stretch. A ton of travel, I was in the automotive space. So I was the only female, youngest exec, like not necessarily a place that you want to grow old in. My doula agency was born out of my stillborn and my loss, and I started in the bereavement doula space. my cookie company for the lactation, when I was told by 6 lactation specialists I would never be able to breastfeed. And I'm like, but you haven't met me. Like, hold on a second.
Wow.
I love that.
Something someone said I couldn't possibly do, or wasn't able to, or wasn't good enough, smart enough, etc.
You said, fuck that.
I did all day, every day.
That's right.
Yeah.
100%.
So did your kind of toxic corporate career, was that what propelled you to become an entrepreneur, or did you already have entrepreneurial dreams?
So I already had some entrepreneurial itches and pieces in there. None that I fully exploited, because I kind of did what I was told to do as like a safe option. So kind of got the corporate career, got the corporate job, got the 401k, the IRA account, the company car, et cetera, et cetera. And then I was like, this is awful. Like literally awful. And for me, it actually went a little bit deeper, where I was looking for affirmation still from my parents, even though they were awful parents. I went to their favorite company and I literally like got the top job at their favorite company in hopes that I would be like, Cass, you get a gold star. You did well. Like, and zip, zero, nada. And I was like, okay, I'm clearly doing this for the wrong reason. Loved the marketing side of it. So where I was, not so much.
Yeah. And I'm sure that transition had a lot of learning curves. Can you talk a little bit what it was like to not only kind of recognize your own trauma and limiting beliefs in that instant, but also switch from a corporate career, which in some ways can feel safe, it's guaranteed income, to an entrepreneurship, which has the freedom, but it can also feel less safe in some ways?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, I think honestly, I was using while I was in my corporate career, I was going through a huge kind of spiritual path, spiritual journey, mentorship. I lived basically that entire year on like a therapist's couch too, to be completely transparent with you, sorting through all of like the childhood stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's really when I came to that realization of like, why am I doing this? I'm like taking someone else's, how to be successful, how to, get ahead, how to do life. And I'm basically trying to apply it to me, and it never quite fit right. Every time I would be in a corporate job, I would be there for like 90 days and I'd get like this itch. And I'd be like, okay, I need another position. I need another team member. I need another like department that has to come underneath me. Like, I need something else, because it was just stagnant. It felt stagnant after 90 days. That I was like, okay, there's clearly something underneath here that's not working.
Yeah. Coming from the woman who started more than 3 businesses, I can imagine that it being in the same corporate job would become very stagnant, even if you're moving upward.
Are you guys into human design at all?
No, what is that?
What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's a personality testing kind of thing. It's a real good one. It actually goes by birth chart, so it's a little on the woo side, but it's accurate. Like, it's more accurate than anything I've really ever seen. And one of the archetypes, so to speak, is a manifester, and they're the type of person that plants the seeds and then lets other people do it, but like is the one who comes up with the ideas. And like when I had someone do this for me and like read my chart, they were like, oh, no wonder you're a manifester. They're like, you're literally meant to just birth ideas into the world and go birth another idea into the world. I was like, oh, this is why I never quite fit.
That is awesome. It's called human design.
Human design. Yeah.
I wrote that down.
Me too.
It's wonderful. My husband's a generator, so he's the one who like wants to get the idea from someone and then just like carry it out. And I was like, oh, this is why our marriage works out so well. Like,
wow.
The idea, you go do it.
How interesting. I want to know right now what I am.
Me too.
It's similar to like an Enneagram too, if you guys.
I love that. Yeah, I do like that one.
8.
You're a 7/8. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
8 kind of brings me in a little bit.
Nice.
I don't know what I am.
I don't remember if I'm a 9 or a 2. I know they're similar. There's one little trait different. I don't remember which one it was.
Are you I think 2 is
helper. I'm the helper.
Yep. I can see that.
Yep. Really? Already?
Totally, 100%. Danny, I'm pegging you for a 3.
Me?
Carrie, I don't know you quite enough yet. Yeah.
What is a 3?
A 3 is very similar to a 7, but a little bit more like not as out there. You're a little bit more you color a little bit more in the lines. I want lines. I don't see any. I don't want lines.
That's awesome.
Carrie, I can't thank you quite yet.
Well, all right. I'm mysterious. All right.
You are.
Carrie is mysterious. Oh, wow. Well, okay. So speaking about all this trauma and leveraging trauma, 2020 has been a particularly tough year for a lot of people, and I am sure has been trauma inducing in a variety of ways. Coming from your professional experience helping people deal with trauma and leveraging it, what is your perspective on this year and everything that has been come about?
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to even begin to know kind of all of the I don't even know how to put it into words. I don't even know that we're going to be able to quantify all of the like issues that we're going to see from 2020 until years and years down the road. Trauma tends to take a while to manifest in the body or in a business or in life. Like it's not something that shows up, 60 days later for most. It's, will rear its ugly head for, 20 years later, 40 years later, 5 years later, whatever the case may be. So I'm just seeing, especially in the business space, which is really where I specialize, a ton of doubt, a ton of fear, a ton of just people not knowing and not being able to control kind of what's going on. So they're kind of pulling back and holding back. And I've seen tons of businesses close down out of fear. I've seen some people open businesses, and I've seen a ton of businesses succeed and kind of grow during this space. But I just feel like we're not going to be able to quantify all that's going on until years and years down the road.
Can you start working with trauma like as it's happening, or is it you can't really start working with it until like you have it?
So I don't know where the imprints show up as it's happening, but like as the limiting beliefs happen for COVID, a lot of the work that I was doing in my small groups were related to COVID and what happens if my kids are home now, what can I do for my business? Or, this is a circumstance that I wasn't necessarily ready for. Like, what do I do? So we were working kind of through the real life, like almost, but obviously as it was happening, but we don't know where else those imprints are going to be until later, in my opinion.
And when you said it manifests in the body, what does that mean? Does that mean like you get sick, or does that something else?
So there's a book, it's called The Body Keeps Score. It's amazing. It's actually as it relates to trauma and what the body exactly does. So there's imprints in the body, and it's been known from a scientific perspective that it actually will show up for some people as, autoimmune diseases. It'll show up for some people as, rashes. It'll show up for some people as cancers. It'll show up for some people as all of these different like physical symptoms. But then also I take care of most of the mental symptoms inside of things.
Wow. So as you're working with people that are recognizing these traumas and these limiting beliefs in themselves, which I'm sure for many people can be huge, right? Very eye-opening. Do you also experience kind of your own eye-opening things while this is happening for other people as well?
100%. Yeah. So it's so funny because before I kind of got into this space, I kind of rode my business accolades hard and never mentioned anything about my childhood. People would be like, what do you do for Christmas? I'm like, nothing. They're like, don't you have any family traditions? I'm like, nope. Like I was not the one to talk about any of this until I realized some of my stuff was actually holding me back from doing the work that I was supposed to be doing. And then the minute I can remember exactly the minute I said it out loud, I had women like coming over and hugging me and being like, me too. I thought I was the only one. No one's ever said this out loud. Now I can tell you my whole story. And I was like, oh shit, what can of worms did I just like open up? And of course, I mentor with a shaman. I don't mentor with a traditional business coach because I know a lot of my work is on the spiritual side. And she's like, no shit, Sherlock. This is because this is the work you were supposed to be doing. She's like, oh, like I told you for the past 7 years. And I'm like, great. I appreciate it. I was like, okay, I'm a little bit stubborn. It took me 7 years to kind of come to terms with it.
How did
on top of the 30?
How did you find a shaman to mentor with, or where did that idea even come up for you?
Oh my gosh! So it would be this. I'm a yoga teacher. I've been in the yoga space for a while, and kind of that was part of my spiritual journey, and I'm fairly involved in the church. And no matter where I went for about 10 years, people would be like, have you talked to a shaman? Have you worked with a shaman? You have shamanic energy. And I'm like, what the fuck are you
Shamanic energy?
It was the strangest thing. And it would be like at the grocery store. Like you can ask my husband, I swear to God, like they'd be like, walk over to me and be like, and I'm like, I don't wear turquoise. I don't have long flowy gray hair. Like, yes, I rub a crystal, but like, I was like, this is just really weird. So one day, I have a client who's a holistic like doctor, who's an amazing naturopathic doctor, and she's like, "Oh, I booked you a session," and with my shaman. I was like, "Okay, that's a really strange gift," but so I literally sat down with her and I started talking to her, and I was like, "So I don't know why I'm here. My client booked me this session, and I've been told by many people for many years that I need to work with one." And she's like, welcome home. You're finally here. And I'm like, okay, this is strange. I'm like, I'm super pragmatic. Like I have a finance degree. I rock my calculator. I can make quadratic equation jokes like nobody's business. And I'm like, this is really strange. So that's kind of how I got introduced. And I've been working with she's now become a mentor of mine. I've worked with her for the past 7 years. So
wow.
Did that relationship kind of click right away, even though you were like,
100%.
Yeah, that's
like,
cool.
I don't know like what came over me after our first session together, but I was like, so have you ever mentored anyone? And she was like, so you went from like not wanting to talk to me being like, can you mentor? And I'm like, I've never said that to anyone. I've not like, that's just not how I am. But I was like, okay, like, what do I need to do? Like, do you want me to go do plant medicine? Do you want me to like, I don't know, burn something in the backyard? Like, you tell me what I need to do. I'm here for it.
What happens in a shaman
mentorship?
Yeah, we do a lot of soul retrieval. So it's actually within the body when trauma happens and when issues kind of arise with the body. It's said in the shamanic practice that parts of your body leave, parts of your soul kind of leave and evade. So it makes sense for me, especially from a physical and mental abuse perspective. I remember not remembering what happened from like a safety mechanism. It's kind of like that freeze state on fight, flight, or freeze. It's leaving the body essentially in order to survive.
Where does it go?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's gone. Where does it go? You're like, actually, like, so do you like lose an arm? Do you lose what goes on?
That's totally where my brain went. I was like, okay, so is it like hovering around me, or is it
part of the energetic body leave?
Okay.
It's not safe actually in the human form in the meat suit that we walk around in.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that totally makes sense because like I think of my own trauma, and even now there's some like trauma experiences that I have like a very foggy, very vague memory of. And I know that it's because, you know, my brain or whatever just repressed it as a safety mechanism. So I completely get that. And I think that's a super interesting idea of thinking of like part of your soul or essence or energy just kind of like, oh, I'm out of here. This doesn't feel good, you know?
Exactly. 100%. And it's funny because what we do during a soul retrieval is bring that piece of the body back into the body. So we'll go into age 7 and see what happened in age 7 and see whether it was your voice that was taken away or whether it was your power that was taken away or whether it was like physically your body or something that you couldn't control that was taken away, and we invite that piece back home. So
is that an intense experience? I feel like it would be super
100%.
intense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I've applied that now with business coaching. It's a type of meditation, and it's a type of kind of a therapy, I guess you could say, with not the traditional sense, but it's type of bringing kind of that piece back. So we identify the trauma, and then we bring the piece that we lost back.
And what does it feel like after it comes back?
So it depends. I've had some people like describe it as like, they're like, oh, I actually feel like whole, or I feel like I can breathe again, or I feel complete. I've had some people just completely break down and not be able to speak. For me, it's varied when I've gone through many, 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 many sessions. So for me, it's varied from age to age. Like when I went through retrieval from, when I was 5 years old, and I remember my first abuse experience was completely different than when I remember, a 13 or 14, like kind of sexual abuse experience. So it's an interesting space.
Yeah, I can imagine. And how do you take that into, like, you say you use these techniques for business coaching? Can you explain what that looks like on the business side of things?
Yeah, 100%. So like, for instance, if you feel like you have no ability to communicate because at 9 someone kind of took that away from you, and we give that back to you, then when we start talking about your PR or your marketing or your media, or you're putting your social out there, whatever the case may be, we can kind of realize what's holding back. So a lot of times people are like, oh, I didn't feel seen when I was a kid and I didn't feel loved. And now I realize that. And now I know that, when I post something and it doesn't get it's funny, mine's an amazing thing. But when I post it and I don't get the amount of likes that I want, I'm feeling that same wound that I had as a child, because I didn't get the love. I didn't get the affirmation that I was seeking.
Do you ever have instances where clients are really resistant to this type of work?
100%. I was resistant to it too. Like, yeah. Or I've gotten the ones who are like, or this is my favorite type of client. They'll sit down and they'll be like, so I don't need mindset work. And I've gotten that done. I just strictly need business strategy. And I'm like, okay, how's that working for you? And then I've done all the mindset things. I journal 4 times a day. I meditate for 27 hours a day. Like, it's just, sure. And I'm like, I do all of that stuff too. I'm like, I do all the things. I'm like, but trust me, like, sister needs some mindset, like, checks and balances. So yeah, I feel like the more resistant people are to it, the more they actually need the work.
Do you feel like, there's ever like an end point, or do you think it's like a constant kind of work that needs to be done?
That's a really good question. I have not yet found my end point, so I'm assuming there might be eventually one. I think for me, I notice the patterns more quickly now in my life. So like, for instance, if I don't want to do something, or I have an inner child moment where I'm like, I don't want to do that thing that I know I'm supposed to do, or like, I don't want to get on that podcast, I don't want to speak on that stage. Like, okay, what's hurt for little Cass? Okay, why is she acting out? So I think you start to kind of check yourself a little bit more, because you know where the root's coming from. So after you've unearthed all those roots and all those wounds and all those pieces, you're like, oh, that's why I do the thing that I do.
Are you ever out with people, or like at networking events, or having conversations with people, and you're just thinking to yourself like, oh boy, y'all need some work? Because I would imagine that I would be doing that all the time.
So yes, there's been a lot of times, even, it's so sad, my poor husband, bless him, like, we'd be in a fight and I'd be like, okay, that's because your dad said that your brother was his favorite, and that's your little boy acting. And he's like, for the love of God, like, can you just be my wife for like 5 minutes? And I'm like, I can, but I just want you to know we can heal this part in the relationship between you and your dad and your brother. Like, let me help you.
In your marriage, do you have to like put up like special boundaries, or like, I'm not gonna, I'm not, like, you hear with like psychologists, like, I'm not gonna psychoanalyze my spouse. Do you kind of have to do something similar?
I do, yeah. I absolutely do. There's still some times where, like, especially like, we're in the midst of a crazy like, he retired. He started to work for my businesses. He just retired from his job. We're in the midst of a move. He's starting to be more of a stay-at-home dad. There's a lot of identity stuff that's going on right now. So it's particularly hot. But no, normally I'm like, I'll be like, do you want the wife answer, or do you want like the spiritual woo, I could help you help answer? He's like, I'd like the wife answer, please. I'm like, okay, cool. I think you're perfect just the way you are, honey.
That is so funny. Yeah, I think I'll do like speaking to the personality tests that you were mentioning earlier, I just think I'll do a personality test and then I'll go to my husband. I know what you are, or I know what you would have done in this situation. He's like, okay, all right, you need to back up a little bit.
My husband's the one that's always non-conforming on personality tests. So I'm like, oh, it's because your astrological chart says this. It's because your human design says this. It's because your, whatever Enneagram says this. It's because this says this. And he's like, no, it's not. It has nothing to do with that. And then I'll say it for a client. And he's like, oh, but it makes so much sense for them. And I'm like, cool. You don't believe it for you? Okay, cool.
So we talked a little bit about your businesses and the fact that you have multiple. Can you go into the businesses that are currently running right now and what they are and what they do?
Yeah, totally. So I have a marketing agency. It's for female entrepreneurs. I have 42 women who work for me for that agency. And we do everything from graphic design to logo design to funnels, marketing, you name it, we probably do it. And it's all female focused and female centric. We have approximately 2 really, really smart male clients that wanted to work with an all female agency, but the rest of the people that we work with are female or female identifying.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Thank you. I also have a lactation support cookie company. So it's called Milk and Cookie. We've been around now for almost 3 years. When my daughter turns 3, that turns 3 as well. And essentially what that is, it's a line of cookies and products and herbal teas and supplements that actually help produce a higher quantity and quality of breast milk. So it tends to be more ounces, thicker, creamier breast milk, happier baby, thus happier mom. And then I have my own coaching kind of practice as well. That's kind of been my primary focus. And that was birthed out of the marketing agency of someone wanting a website and me being like, yeah, but let's dive into your trauma and your past stories and your products and your services and, the income you want to make. So that was actually birthed out of the marketing agency. And that's been around now formally for 5 years. But I speak kind of on my story. I'm on a ton of podcasts, written a ton of articles, and do mostly private one-on-one coaching. And I have a couple small group programs too. And
has the pandemic changed the way you coach your clients or look for clients at all?
No. So the only things that's changed really is I'm on less stages lately because there are no stages available.
That makes sense.
So 2020, between the months of March and July, I was supposed to be traveling every week and kind of doing a speaker tour. And all of that got canceled except one small 20-person church event. And I was like, okay, we'll make do.
Yeah.
So pushed to 2021 and 2022 even. Wow. So really not much has changed. I've always coached virtually. I have coaching clients around the world. I have marketing agency clients around the world. The cookie company has always been mail order. So I was kind of set up for this. I'm really fortunate.
That's awesome.
Yeah, not much has changed, to be honest with you.
And if somebody wanted to contact you for coaching services or to find out more about your businesses, would your website, CassandraShuck.com, be the best place to go?
Yeah, absolutely. CassandraShuck.com is kind of my all things internet hub. It has links to my social. It has links to my podcast, Stacked Against. You can see my programs or blog articles I wrote. Yeah, kind of there for everything.
Awesome.
Can I throw out one last little question here? How do you do all of this? Let's have a little kid. You have a lot going on, and I am blown away.
I have an amazing team. I really do. That was a part of my story of my releasing some white knuckle grip and some trauma issues of not trusting people. I was like, oh, in order to actually grow and do the things I'm supposed to do, I actually have to hire and trust people and give people parts of their businesses and responsibilities and not follow them around with a magnifying glass.
Wow.
So that's part of my secret to success, so to speak, is I really have an amazing team.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we could definitely talk to you all night. This has been super interesting, but we are running out of time. So again, you can find Cassandra at cassandrashuck.com, and we will post her link in the show notes to make sure everyone has it. And if you want to find us, we are going to post the video version of this to our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/WomenAF podcast. You can find us on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at WomenAF podcast, or send us an email with your story for a chance to have it read live on air, womenafpodcast@gmail.com. We are Women AF, and we know you are too.
Yeah.
Yeah.